Joining me now is Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Senator Graham, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I want to start overseas in Syria. I know that you have been quite focused on the conflict there. The fact that President Bashar al-Assad has been overturned by rebels, creating a power vacuum there. I know you've expressed some concerns that there could be a resurgence of ISIS in Syria. I want to ask you, President-elect Trump has said the U.S. should, quote, not get involved in Syria. Is that the right approach, Senator?
Well, leave it up to the Syrians to form their new government, what kind of country they want to be to a point. But we do have an interest in preventing ISIS from coming back on the battlefield. For 5 years, they reigned terror in America, all over Europe, slaughtering people. ISIS fighters are killing machines. They want to purify Islam. They want to take down the King of Jordan, the King of Saudi Arabia. They want to replace the UAE with a theocracy. You don't want these people in charge of the Mideast. They want to drive us out of the Mideast, and they want to destroy our friends in Israel. There are 50,000 ISIS fighters under the control of Kurdish allies of the United States in northeastern Syria. It is in our national security interest they do not break out of jail and reestablish the caliphate. It is in our national security interest that we help the Kurds who destroyed the caliphate on our behalf. We lost about 4 soldiers, God bless them, in destroying the caliphate. I do not want ISIS to break out of jail. Turkey is putting pressure on the Kurds in northeastern Syria. We need a demilitarized zone. Turkey has legitimate concerns about some of these Kurdish elements, but if Turkey attacks the Kurds and these ISIS fighters break out of jail, it's a nightmare for us, it's a nightmare for Syria, it's a nightmare for the world. That cannot happen.
All right, Senator Graham, I know you're going to continue to track that situation closely, and whoever becomes the next defense secretary will inherit the crisis in Syria, as well as a range of other crises on the world stage. You said last week that some of the allegations against Pete Hegseth, President-elect Trump's pick to become the next defense secretary, were, quote, very disturbing. Senator, let me ask you, at this point in time, are you prepared to vote yes on Pete Hegseth, and do you think he has enough support to get confirmed?
Yeah, I'm in a good place with Pete unless something I don't know about comes out. These allegations are disturbing, but they're anonymous. I asked him point blank, were you drunk in a bar, and got up and said, let's kill all the Muslims? He said no. There's one allegation in a police report about sexual assault. That person has the right to come forward to the committee. But about mismanagement of money, about having a drinking problem and saying inappropriate things, all of these are anonymous allegations. He's given me his side of the story. It makes sense to me. I believe him. Unless somebody's willing to come forward, I think he's going to get through. Remember Kavanaugh? 5 people accused Justice Kavanaugh of misconduct. 3 were outright lies. The other 2, I think, were not credible. So we're not going to let that happen to Pete. You're not going to destroy his nomination based on anonymous sources. People have to come forward and make credible allegations, and we'll see if they do.
Well, Pete Hegseth did sign a non-disclosure agreement with this person who came forward to accuse him of sexual misconduct. Do you want to see that? Should that type of information be released? Do you want to hear from he told me he would release her from that agreement. Yeah, I mean, just think about what we're talking about. I'd want to know if anybody nominated for a high-level job in Washington legitimately assaulted somebody. I've known Pete for years. I met him in Afghanistan. I've heard nothing but good things about his service over there. He's a friend. The Pete Hegseth, I know this is not a problem I've been aware of. However, if people have an allegation to make, come forward and make it. Like they did in Kavanaugh, we'll decide whether or not it's credible. Right now, he's being tried by anonymous sources. That will not stand. Senator, how do you respond to your Republican colleagues? You heard Lisa Murkowski there at the top, Tom Tillis, say that basically it feels like there is a pressure campaign against them to get on board with President-elect Trump's picks.
Yeah, well, that's true of everything we do up here. You have a right to petition your government. I get pressured all the time to do this or do that. I'm pretty consistent. I vote for almost every nominee. I think I voted against 1 or 2
presidential cabinet pick since I've been up here, because I believe every president deserves the right to pick their cabinet. The people have to be qualified. They have to have good character. Those things are all part of the process, but my predisposition is to support presidential nominations, just not for Republicans, but for Democrats. So at the end of the day, yeah, people will push you to do things up here. It's up to you to resist. I feel very comfortable in the way I do my job. You can have your say with me and I will listen, but I'm going to do what I think is best for the country, and that's have a process that works.
Let me ask you about the FBI. Senator President-elect Trump has picked Kash Patel to lead the FBI. Of course, Christopher Wray did announce he's resigning 3 years before his term ends. Here's what you said on this program the last time Donald Trump was choosing an FBI director. Look.
He has a duty and obligation to pick somebody beyond reproach, outside the political lane. I think he'll do that. I hope he'll do that. I would encourage the president to pick somebody we can all rally around, including those who work in the FBI.
Senator, is Kash Patel beyond reproach and someone that everyone can rally around?
Well, I think you were talking about what he should do the last time. Look what's happened since the last time. The FBI, in the eyes of conservatives, has become sort of a very biased organization. The Hunter laptop was real. Right before the election of 2020, the intelligence community, including the FBI, suppressed that story. Crossfire Hurricane, run by the FBI, was a joke, was a political effort to take Trump down using false information generated by somebody connected to Russia. The Steele dossier was a lie. People used it to get warrants based on faulty information. So the FBI we talked about then has changed. So what do I want in an FBI director now? Somebody that can clean it up, get back to the job of fighting crime, don't have your thumb on the political scale, make sure it's not used as a political weapon against people that you have a beef with. We don't want to go back to the days of J. Edgar Hoover. What we want to do is have an FBI that's going to call balls and strikes, and it's going to take somebody to clean out the place.
Well, you know, I guess what I'm asking about is bipartisan support. Christopher Wray was confirmed by a vote of 92 to 5. Are you concerned about President-elect Trump putting forward someone who might not have that type of bipartisan support?
I can't stress to you enough that when I was a young person, I wanted to be an FBI agent. I'd watch it every Sunday. It was a great show. I admire the FBI, but it's way off track. Comey was a disaster. They used to steal dossier to get warrants against American citizens that was fabricated. They accused President Trump of being a Russian agent when there was no credible evidence to suggest otherwise. They have come after people in the pro-life community. They have suppressed information that would have been relevant to 2020. The laptop was real. They said it was false. 50 intel people signed a letter saying that laptop was Russian disinformation. None of us trust these people anymore.
Senator, a little bit of a lightning round because we have 2 more questions to get to. President-elect Trump told me he thinks the members of the January 6th committee should go to jail. Do you agree with that statement?
No.
Okay. That was very clear and concise. Let's move on. Then I want to ask you about
Well,
Dreamers.
you said lightning.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, I appreciate that. I want to ask you about Dreamers because the president-elect told me he wants to work with Democrats on a deal to protect Dreamers. Do you believe Dreamers will have a path to legal status by the end of President-elect Trump's second term?
Only if we clean up the border. I was on the Gang of 8 bill doing comprehensive immigration. I've been on every Dreamer bill there is. But what's happened under President Biden, you've allowed 13 million people come in here legally. Until we deport people here illegally, why would you legalize any? If you legalize one person now, there'd be a run on the border. There will be no legalization. There will be no Dreamer bill until we lock our border down. And the #1 job for the Budget Committee in the United States Senate is to pass a border security bill on day one. I want to cut taxes, but that comes later. To my friends in the House, we're playing Russian roulette with our national security. Terrorists are all over the place trying to get into the country.
250 people die a day of fentanyl poisoning. What we will do in the Senate is come up with a border bill supported by Stephen Miller and President Trump to lock down the border, create agents to deport people, bed space so they don't have to be released, and finish the wall. That's what we're going to do. If we don't do that first, it's national security malpractice. Secure the border first. Any legalization has to come after you secure your border.
All right. Well, you got it all in, Senator Graham. Thank you very much. I really appreciate
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. Thanks for doing the lightning round with me. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.